Welcome, everyone, to Revolutionizing Construction with Quickbase, innovating everything from contractors to culture. I'm pleased to be joined by our three panelists today. They have a passion for Quickbase and have great insights to share about how they're revolutionizing construction with the power of Quickbase. I'm joined by Bob Salaj, Director of Operational Excellence at Lighthouse Electric Company, Steve Davidson, Database Administrator at Modern Times, Brian Fogg, Solutions Consultant at Quickbase, and I'm Greg Hackenberg, Senior Marketing Campaigns Manager here at Quickbase. Now, before we get started, there are a few housekeeping items I want to go over. You're watching this on On24, which offers a lot of options for customization. You can find how-to in related content. Also, please feel free to use the Q&A widget for questions throughout the session, and we'll try to answer some live at the end. Now, this session really has two sections. We have a roundtable, which will start momentarily, and then we have that live Q&A at the end. We want to hear from you in the audience with any questions or thoughts you have as we're going through. So please let us know through the On24 functionality when you have something to share. Without further ado, we'll jump right into the roundtable. So our first question's about the journey that our panelists have had with Quickbase. And I'd love to start off with Steve here. Steve, would you mind sharing with us where you work now and about your journey with Quickbase?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Greg. And thank you to Quickbase too for hosting this. Well, my journey with Quickbase started as I was working for the state of Washington as an investigator, first investigating reports of vulnerable adults being financially exploited. From there, I switched to another investigator job with the state, investigating damage to underground facility lines that would happen because people would not call 811 before digging, which is where I was introduced to Quickbase. So we used Quickbase to house all of the damage reports we get, as well as the pipeline inspection records. And a couple of months into using Quickbase, one day everything just kind of clicked and I was hooked and began building an investigation management system to take reports, process them, compare them to our contractor database, and track investigations, penalties, and payment information as they progressed. Recognizing the power of Quickbase, and because of how much I enjoyed it, I also got a builder account and started using Quickbase to track my vegetable garden and even my backyard chickens, and made a little RFID scanner out of a Raspberry Pi that scans RFID tags on the chicken's foot when it goes into the nest box and sends that information to Quickbase. So after doing that for a couple of years, I was in the Quickbase forums one day and saw a job posting for Modern Times, Inc. They wanted a full-time Quickbase developer, which sounded like a lot of fun, and it has turned out to be. So now I work at Modern Times, which is a consulting agency that helps companies handle logistics with project management, compliance, community relations, outreach, workforce development, and data systems. A lot of what we do relies on Quickbase, and we've made some custom applications to help us help our clients and to offer the clients some applications for tracking contracts and payments. And recently we created an application to track and coordinate flagging requests.
Wow, so you've had a lot of experience so far with Quickbase. That's really exciting to hear. I'd love to talk to Bob and understand, about your journey with Quickbase and Lighthouse Electric.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. And Steve, definitely a wide array of apps there. So I'm jealous of what you've been able to build there. I think my journey really goes back 10, 12 plus years now, really from the inception of Quickbase back to Intuit. I've been using the system for quite some time. I've been spending a lot of time in multiple industries, and that ranges anywhere from manufacturing to healthcare to electrical distribution and honestly, finally within construction. So we've been using the application really from a digital lean place. So anytime that we need to really do continuous improvement, lean Kaizens, there was always a way of understanding how do we begin to integrate this technology and get us something quickly to either proof of concept or streamline the process or really go through the variety of reports, dashboards, et cetera. Quickbase has been the tool to do that from the onset. So it's been exciting to see that across a multitude of industries. and be able to kind of integrate with our teams as we move forward. So in past relationships through the electrical distribution in construction, Lighthouse Electric has brought us on to really enhance how we are doing prefabrication, how are we looking at safety, how are we tracking our bids, and really looking at all the processes combined. Lighthouse Electric is based on the East Coast, but really have understood that in order to kind of grow the pond that we play in, we needed to find a way to bring all that information under one roof, make it accessible, and really have a information revolution to get the information out to the people that need it, whether that be our superintendents, project managers, or other GCs and safety personnel. So we're excited to really showcase and talk through a lot of the applications we built and how that may actually tie into some things you guys may be trying to do. So thank you, Greg.
Great, thank you. And really exciting to see, your over 10 years of experience with Quickbase. You must have seen a lot of growth there just using the platform as well.
A lot of changes across the board. And that's kind of what's exciting too, is to see the investment being made and to see the new table reports, for example, coming out. So
very popular, I know. And Brian, our own Quickbase solutions consultant, why don't you share your journey with Quickbase? And since you work with so many of our customers, especially in construction, share a little bit about that experience as well.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. No, compared to Bob and Steve, I'm kind of the newbie to Quickbase here. So my journey with Quickbase actually started about 2.5 years ago. I have a friend who was actually is an employee of Quickbase, and he introduced it to me and said, "Hey, you like building things? You currently work in a lot of Excel files. Why don't you try out this system of this company that I work with?" And similar to Steve, I got a builder's account, started looking around at the help articles, jumped into the Quickbase University, built out my first app, which happened to be an event planning application. So I was like, oh, wow, I can like track stuff in here. This is kind of cool. And the whole time I was going through the Quickbase University and in my builder account, I started thinking about my current job, which at the time was I was an accountant and kind of tracking financial information. And my job prior to that, where I was a project manager for a land development company. And my thoughts were just, man, if I could have had this tool back with my land development company. And for that job, we built townhomes and condominiums in Park City, Utah. So we were constantly looking for ways to, track subcontractors and see what was going on in the project and, what our statuses are. And we never really had any of that in one location. I had my own spreadsheets. The owners had their own spreadsheets. The guys on site, they had all the plans that they were working with, and they had their hand notes. So no one had this kind of cohesive, uniform place that all the information lived. So as I was going through my builder program, like I need to start trying to like create an app around tracking all this information that I wished I would have had, 4 years ago with this land development company. So Quickbase really opened my eyes on how you could track stuff and keep information in one location. So I fell in love with the platform so much that I left a job of 8 years and totally switched careers from finance and was grateful to get an opportunity to work at Quickbase. So I took that one step and just started working for the company. So it was a great experience, great to learn about Quickbase. And I, like I said, loved it so much. I now work here. So.
Wow, and we're really glad to have you too, Brian. So really happy to have you here on the panel and at Quickbase.
Thanks.
So let's talk a little further about Quickbase, but more about how you use it today and the impacts that you're seeing from it. I'd love to Bob, have you start off telling us, again, how you're using Quickbase, the impact, and also how it sits or where it sits within your company's tech stack.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a really important question, I think, within the construction industry is really understanding, I think, Brian, you're talking about it, is what is your core systems from the day one that I stepped foot on board and you asked a simple question, tell me about customer XYZ. Where do you go get that information? And to see how people react, who they go to run a report, where they go in terms of share drives or pulling Excel spreadsheets. What I'm excited to share with you is that we really use it in pretty much every single department that we have on staff here today at Lighthouse Electric. And that goes for not only just internal operations, but how we begin to use that out in the field as well. So you'll see in our next slide, not to jump to that right away, but it's really our backbone. It is our ERP system, as I'll call it, that really we try to identify that information silos from the moment we go to a bid and we're trying to win that opportunity to capture all of that information upstream, to how do we create a system where we're not double entering anything, so that it begins to feed the job management application, so that it begins to feed the tool tracker application, or prefabrication and pre-construction, or how about safety? And it just continues to kind of spearhead and snowball in all those different avenues. So I'm really excited. I think Lighthouse Electric, we've been using Quickbase honestly only for about 3 years now. And the first year was really, how do we bridge that gap of understanding what this system is even about? How do we use it? And for the last 2 years, we've really been understanding how to utilize these applications. And I was excited to see, especially in this industry, how much change was fervently wanted within this. And you're going to see, I think, some of the slides here. You can see some of the applications that we had in terms of tools, safety observations, and tasks really have grown exponentially. So this is kind of a testament to how we've decided to step in, not just put our toe in and test the waters a little bit, but say, this is how we're going to be ordering tools from now on. There is no other way. You can't call down the logistics or tool shop. We are going to find a way to make this digital information work. And that was really a game changer for us within when COVID hit. How are we going to manage remotely? So I'm really excited to share. You can see 3,800 tool requests, 61,000 tools processed, 4,800 safety observations across all of our jobs of what we're having, and that continues to grow. And then you can see a little snapshot of our prefab facility and how we're actually tracking that entire process, which I'm super excited to share a little bit later here. So we use it across the board. Greg, I think the next slide really does showcase how we break up our organization in terms of the teams that we have in the departments. And so I encourage everyone on the line today is to really think through. You may not have the ability to create that backbone system that's really your core hub and spoke, and you may be developing more point solutions. And we got to figure out a way, how do we integrate that across the board? So you can see here that when we sat down with IT and the rest of the department heads and leadership, how do we begin to move that information across the board? And this is even a little outdated. I think we're continuing to move forward in terms of HR and supply chain and begin to make those integrations using pipelines into all the other systems that we want to see. So super exciting. And what was nice about this is that it's all about change management. And one of the things that when I go out and talk to the job sites and superintendents, it's about standardization. How do we standardize every single view of how we look and feel so that we're not having to retrain every single time that we go out? And it's been exciting to see how these applications have been adopted with that mindset of, hey, we're going to try to do our best under one system, one platform, make this work and move that information from spot to spot. And we're starting to get it because it makes it easy to capture that information and pull it out, since we are all on the same page using that platform, as opposed to different user names, passwords. How do you print a report might be different. It has really really expounded upon how we're actually pulling that information on a daily basis. So it's been a great journey, and I'm excited to see how it's going to continue to move forward in the next few years as well. More ideas come up every day.
Wow, amazing just to see how Quickbase can be both the backbone, but can also integrate with all of these other systems across your entire tech stack. That's really cool to see.
Absolutely.
So Steve, why don't you share about how Modern Times is using Quickbase and the impact you're seeing with it?
Yeah, well, a lot like Bob, we use Quickbase for everything pretty much internally, and we have a lot of client-side facing apps as well, things for contracts and subcontracts and payments. But one of the more interesting ones that we've done recently is build a flagging coordination application. So Modern Times was approached by a company doing a 26-mile rail alignment project over in Texas. And they had mentioned to us sort of the process of what they were doing with these flagging requests to get flaggers out to stop traffic during certain lanes while work was going on. And they explained the process to us, that they were using Excel spreadsheets and paper forms and emails and just every different kind of which way to go about it they were doing. And they recognized that as the project went on, because 26 miles, that's a long time, and it's going to be a multi-year project, that it was going to become a huge logistical mess and a nightmare for them to try to schedule all of these while limiting overlap of scheduled flaggers and making sure that that everywhere they were needed while work was going on, that they would have them there with as little overlap and scheduling sort of difficulties as possible. So they work with 4 or 5 different flagging companies, and everything has to go through the coordinator, who sends it out to the flagging companies, who approves them and says they can do the coverage and sends it back. And then it goes back to the requester, which is one of potentially a couple hundred contractors working on the project throughout the couple of years. So they approached us with this problem, and we decided to do a Quickbase solution that, instead of spreadsheets and planning everything, posting everything up on walls and laying all the requests across tables every day to figure out who needs what and where, we put it all into Quickbase, and it has worked out so far really well. It let them be able to schedule these days and make sure that the flaggers were scheduled and going to show up on the job with as little overlap as possible. So that's been great. We also built them using the help of a Quickbase service provider, a Gantt chart. So they have an easy to visualize schedule for the next day when they do their planning meetings. And that's been working out really great as well. We estimate that so far, between the less paper handling and emails and spreadsheet and scheduling, laying everything out, that they've saved about 500 hours so far, just in about 5 months with all of that. Because Quickbase really has made it so anybody can log on, anybody can see the status of their request. They know exactly where it's at in the process. They see if it's been approved or not. And the coordinator can see exactly where people are going to be and how long they'll be there for, and where more flaggers may be needed. And with 26 miles of route and 1,473 potential points of needing flaggers at those spots along the way, without Quickbase, as the project rolls on, it really would have become a logistical nightmare for them. So it was great to be able to use Quickbase in a way that isn't quite 100% conventional, and get this app built for them. And I'm really glad that so far it's working out well.
Wow, I can't imagine, with all of those data points, putting papers on tables and walls every day to figure things out. That sounds like a nightmare.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. So Brian, you've worked with so many of our customers on construction-related applications. Why don't you share some of the applications that you see most often, or build out most often?
Yeah, so as a solution consultant, I definitely see my fair share of different use cases coming in from construction companies. But a lot of them that I see, I'll kind of echo what Steve said here as well. Is they're looking for that central location where all the project information, the tasks are laid out. A lot of them need reporting. So Steve mentioned Gantt charts, or reports that show them who's responsible for certain tasks, statuses, when things are due. A lot of them come. They have, man, I feel like I'm just going to echo Steve here. They have, they have their whiteboards in their office with sticky notes all over them. They're trying to move things around. They do have the tables where they have things. I had worked with a customer where they literally taped off their table into 6 different sections, and that was the different project manager that was responsible for those six different sections. And they would lay the paperwork out on the table, and then that project manager would just get their stack. And now, especially with us all working from home right now due to the pandemic, that's gone away. They can't do that. So they need somewhere that they can have this digital, so everyone can log in and get their section of paperwork. So they're coming kind of, we need a solution to get everything in the cloud in one location. We need reporting. Our project managers need to know what they're doing. They need to know what underlying tasks there are, who's responsible for them, who's handling this. They just need that quick snapshot of everything that's going on in one location. Some of the other use cases that I see as well is not only just kind of overarching project management, but if a lot of construction companies, as things go on, there might be change logs or some orders, something happens to the project that needs to change. So they need to have a dedicated kind of field services management aspect to that as well. So as these calls come in, they can schedule workers to go out to the sites and take care of any of the issues that are happening. And it's also interesting, as I've been here for the last 2 years, and again, maybe it's just me that's noticed this pattern, but kind of as seasons change, we also see, different types of construction companies. So in the spring, we see a lot of solar companies that are trying to, regroup and get ready for the summer for installations that come up so they can get their teams all in, all organized and have that, kind of one pane of glass where they have that insight into it. In the winter, there's more of that field services aspect where you have a lot of service companies that are trying to, coordinate customer calls and get out for repairs and updates for other, like internal home systems like furnaces or air conditioning units. And then in the summer is definitely where we get, a lot of the construction companies that are looking to get away from the table and the whiteboards and get that all in one location with their project management applications, inventory management applications, and their task management, just so everyone is on the same page. So, I see a lot as a solutions consultant, and I'm happy to always help, direct and guide and help them build out those applications to get them away from that kind of more manual process. So.
This is a really interesting thread that I'd love to continue around, apps that every construction company needs, but may not be using or creating yet. I'd love, Brian, for you to sort of continue talking about what should construction companies be using Quickbase for that they might not be already.
Yeah, so kind of continue that vein. A lot of them are coming to kind of get the overarching project with the tasks under control. So it's kind of all in that one location. Drawing from my own experience, one thing that I wish we would have had as well was kind of a supply management application. I know, so when I worked for the land development company, we had our foreman who was in charge of making sure we had enough materials on site, enough, lumber or tiling or whatever was needed for that day. But he usually had a note on either his set of the plans or he had his own Excel spreadsheet that he was maintaining. So the rest of us didn't have access to it. And as sad as it is, one day I was literally given the keys to one of the trucks and told I had to go to the lumber yard because we were out of something. And I had to hop in the truck, get the fifth wheel, drive down to the lumber yard and hope and pray that they had enough lumber for us to finish what we needed to complete that day. So kind of that management of all your materials, I think, is a great application that construction companies can use as well. And that way, for us, when I had to leave the site, we essentially kind of halted work because we didn't have any more materials to build with. So there was kind of this ripple effect that now the contractors that we had scheduled for the next day and those different trades that were coming in that were expecting certain items to be done, we had to push them out for a few days. So now not only is our schedule changed, but oh man, I just went blank. Tile companies and plumbing companies, they have their own schedules as well. So if we move them, now we're changing their schedules as well. So so that supply chain management to make sure that you have everything that you need, you have enough materials, and then you're not going to cause this ripple effect that is going to affect all of the different trades that are scheduled to come onto your site.
Wow, that's great perspective, and I could see how one small change can lead to many changes down the road. And if everyone's changing their schedules, I'm sure that makes it a very poor customer experience for them. Makes it hard for you. That seems like a really powerful application of Quickbase. Bob, I'd love to get your perspective on this question. What are our construction companies not maybe using Quickbase for that they should be?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as you guys see prefabrication come up, but not to digress for a bit, just to kind of take a step back and talk about the whiteboards and the sticky notes. I mean, my past life was about lean and continuous improvement. And the first step that we do here at Lighthouse and across the board is how do you map out your current state workflow? And what do you want your future state to be? And I think a lot of the stuff and trends is around prefabrication within the construction market. And it really has dictated a lot of the applications we've built. So although it might have been a manual process beforehand, I just realized that our background has a bunch of sticky notes actually up on the board behind us, if you were to consider that a whiteboard. And I encourage everyone to really think through that entire process. And one of the takeaways out of this is the prefabrication. We've been talking to a lot of contractors recently about what is your process? How do you move planning, layout, design? How do you develop your CAD process? How do you get that to talk to your manufacturing, your actual prefab facilities? And there's a lot of steps within that process. And there's certainly applications out there that you can buy off the shelf today that fit. And one of the things, as that buzzword has come into the industry, we've got a prefab. We've noticed that there's a lot of different processes from contractor to contractor and how they actually get that information from upstream all the way down to the fab facility out to the field as well. And tracking the dates of how they change, how do we barcode, how do we get all the necessary metadata information that's necessary, how do we make it mobile friendly so that we can scan that with our phones and figure out when it's actually due or where it's at in the process, has been absolutely critical. We have started our journey probably about 4 or 5 years ago around prefabrication, and started with an Excel spreadsheet and a phone call. Hey, I need this. Can you make this 90-degree bend? Can you make this 30-degree bend? Can you create me an underground assembly? What is that going to look like? And standardizing all the processes was one thing, but finding a way to digitally represent that process, I'm going to say, was absolutely critical for our entire operation. Behind me, really within this office, is probably 40 or so individuals that are consistently laying out work and using CAD. And they are consistently managing projects that are remote out at the job sites as well. So, and then we have our fab facility that's about 10 minutes down the road. And then we have our customers out. The reason why I kind of give you that whole story is there's a lot of communication there that has to occur. And having a place to go for everybody, where is that kit located at? What is our shipping manifest for logistics? What kits are we shipping out? Where do we fall within the kit status off to the right? And how are we going to make sure that to click that button, kit fully sent when it's time to come? Quickbase has been absolutely vital. And I encourage anybody that's out there on the line, if you're looking at your prefabrication process and the upstream and the downstream processes that correspond to it, begin thinking about all those steps and really what does that mean within Quickbase. So we spent a lot of time developing this particular application, and I would love to answer any questions that anyone might have afterwards, because I know this is a very critical app right now in the industry, and this has truly been a game changer for us as we continue to go out and get more work within our process. So really excited to share that application, Greg.
Great, thanks for sharing, and thanks for giving us a couple screenshots of the actual application that you're using. It really helps everyone, I think, understand what exactly this could look like in Quickbase.
Absolutely. There's a lot of hands touching this application by the minute every single day. And just to kind of keep that information, really thinking through your dashboards, your rules, your notifications, a lot of time has been spent developing that application. So really excited. It's been working really well.
Great, thank you. Now, Steve, why don't you share sort of your point of view around things that construction companies could be using Quickbase for that they might not be already?
Well, I mean, basically they could use it for just about anything and everything. But in specific applications with complex approval processes, contracts, workflows, Bob just mentioned a lot of people's hands, in working on the same thing at one time. When you have a situation like that, I mean, it's critical for companies, whether they're large or small, to keep the data organized and available, especially when you have processes to where forms or whatever it may be needs to get passed from person to person for these approvals, or if that's just how the workflow is set up. It's critical, and it's great to have an application that won't forget to email that to the next person, or it won't, somehow lose it from between this office to that office. And Quickbase is fabulous for that, because it incorporates the automations and the pipelines that make things like what's on the screen here, these types of complex workflows with approval processes and kind of from start to finish. It makes it possible. That trying to even teach somebody how to do that, you don't need to do that anymore when you're able to build all that into the applications. So the applications have definitely saved a lot of time and headaches through notifications. Just having that central repository of information that many people are involved with it, and so Quickbase just makes it easy, and really it in a lot of ways makes it error-proof as well, making sure that everybody along the line knows exactly what's happening, and one specific record or project can be pinpointed to exactly at what stage of the process it's in and who's it with. It's not so much sitting on somebody's desk anymore as it is sitting in their email box from a notification from Quickbase, or sitting in a report waiting for them to click an approval button. So I think at least the companies that we've worked with that we've built these applications for and helped them out with a lot of these logistical problems, they're really beginning to recognize the value of systems like this that can help out with these things.
Great, thank you for sharing. And sort of on that thought of the value of these types of systems, I'd love to talk about trends in construction and the role of no code. And I'd love to start with Bob. Like, what trends do you see in construction? How does a no code system play into these?
Yeah, so one of obviously the trend that we already talked about was prefabrication. We can talk about that for hours at end, but maybe to switch gears a little bit and see about safety. There's obviously trends in terms of, rather than just being reactive and capturing that information, what do you actually use the information for? Why do we even want to track it in the first place and have someone actually type something into a database? And the purpose of that is really to become predictive. How do we begin getting ahead of the game and begin understanding what are the toolbox talks, or what should the foreman and job sites be meeting on a regular basis to be talking through what could be happening at their job site to get ahead of any injuries that may be occurring. Certainly by inputting the data, you can see here some of the screenshots that we had from our safety app. We're beginning to track 90-day trends and understanding what is going to be forthcoming. Is people getting struck by? Are they falling from heights? Are they drilling overhead? How do we begin to arm them as a safety team to go out and know that this is forthcoming? Let's get ahead of the injuries. Let's help this out so that we can bring our EMR down, our TRIR, and begin winning those more bids that come in because of how well we're doing from a safety standpoint. So from a no-code standpoint, I mean, certainly buying things off the shelf is one thing, but being able to meet and customize and tailor towards your process and your needs as a company has been a true game changer for us at Lighthouse. So as we continue to explore that, it's really how do we proof of concept something pretty quick and understand, is this going to stick around and become our backbone overall? So we see that within the trends of construction, of understanding what is the value and how do we not get paralyzed by as much information that we're capturing and actually do something at the end of the day with the data overall. So I think that's another key takeaway to consider as you guys are building out your applications and what you're seeing with all the information.
Great, thank you. And Brian, I'd love to get your perspective on this, considering, again, all of the applications you've worked on and helped out with.
Yeah, kind of going along with what Bob was saying, that getting things to the way that the company needs them to function. Every company needs a project management or a task management tool, but everyone has their own little twist on it and how their internal workflow happens. And with a low-code platform to where you're able to customize that application to fit your workflow. Every time I kind of show people, this is the tables you can have, this is the form you can have, and they always ask, can we change the name of that to this? And can we change this to that? And can we have this approval go here? Or can this table be named to this with these fields? It's like, oh yeah. And just to quickly change that, to just show them how easily it is to update and customize. And then they're kind of like, oh, it feels like their app all of a sudden. So that customization nature of the low code is awesome to show people. And then, it also puts it into their vernacular, their verbiage that they wanted as well. So it really becomes their application, and they really understand that, okay, this is how we talk internally. This is our actual workflow. We're not trying to take our workflow and put it into one of these other large, robust systems. Kind of that square peg to a round hole aspect. It's like, this is our app. It's not XYZ project management software. It's ours. This is our application, and it's designed for us, and we're going to be able to use this, and move forward with this application. So that customization aspect is a great thing that everyone's looking for that I talk to. So.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Now, I'd love to broaden the topic here and talk about the biggest stumbling blocks that you see for construction companies, sort of regardless of whether they're using a no-code, low-code system or Quickbase. What, Brian, do you see as some of just the biggest stumbling blocks that these companies face?
A lot of the stumbling blocks that I see, kind of going back to my example earlier of, not having enough material or getting things ordered. A lot of them, they just, with everything kind of in random places, they don't have insights into what's going on within the system. Where do they currently sit? Whether that's, budgeting, financial budgeting, time budgeting, are they on target? Are things going over? So I would say kind of the stumbling blocks there are like budgeting their time and their finances. Like I said, kind of ordering things, making sure everything's on site, ready to move forward. Are they ready to have that day's projects move forward? Are they ready to have all the trades that are coming in? Is everything scheduled out? Is everything buttoned up? Is their part ready when it's time for them to move forward? Is this particular machinery on site? Is this contractor ready to come? So those are kind of the stumbling blocks everyone's trying to overcome that I talk with, and Quickbase is allowing them to get, all of that in that one spot, so they know what's going on. They have that insight into, or that visibility into their projects and all of this budgeting of time and finances and everyone else's time and finances as well.
Thank you. Now, Steve, what do you see as the biggest stumbling blocks for construction companies?
Well, a lot of the companies we work with, it's just kind of keeping the right data, keeping it organized and keeping it accurate. A lot of the companies that we work with are on government contracts. And so the requirements will be unique for each project. And that means that the companies will need to demonstrate everything that they've done to ensure that compliance, to make sure that those requirements are met. That includes, good faith efforts. And a lot of this is just really difficult. And it's a lot of work to track all of that and do it in such a way that it's not just sticky notes all over the board. Keeping it in one spot, keeping it organized, and keeping it accurate. As much as we all like emailing spreadsheets back and forth to everybody, it's not the most accurate thing, because it's really easy to reply to an email with an outdated spreadsheet, or maybe two people are working on it at one time. And so then you end up with all these multiple versions. So that's some of the challenges that we see. We also see a lot of challenges with hiring. Again, there's different requirements for each project, and the requirements at each stage keep changing. Maybe the construction company needs to hire workers from local areas or of a certain trade. And on these large or mega projects, that becomes quite the challenge. But having all of the available candidates in a database and what they can do and their backgrounds and all the information you need in one spot makes it really easy to just create reports to filter them out. And then we're able to assist these companies with getting workers on the job site quickly. And, it's the workers they need that will satisfy all the requirements. So yeah, because it can get very difficult. And again, with government contracts, there can be these penalties for non-compliance, which is never good. Nobody wants to have to deal with those. So as far as how we help them, the data comes from so many different places and so many different formats that we really use Quickbase to just get it all in one spot and kind of normalize it all. And that way we're able to churn through it and get the results that are needed. So I think that's one of the major stumbling blocks, is just having a way to organize all that and having a way to keep it handy and not have to require somebody at the end of the month to go through pages and pages of spreadsheets, adding up columns and all of that, because it's all in Quickbase, and Quickbase can do it all automatically and have the reports at any time in real time.
Great, thank you for sharing. Now, Bob, I'd love to hear your perspective on the stumbling blocks, the biggest ones that you see for construction companies.
Greg, there are absolutely no stumbling blocks whatsoever that we have faced within it. Now, I'm
Wow.
kidding.
Problem solved.
If that were true, we would all be done already, right? This is a very big topic, and I think one that we could definitely almost have our own session on at the end of the day. Really, I think one of the biggest stumbling blocks is the culture aspect of this change. And I think what I mean by this change is really what we're doing is coming up with a way to empower every single individual. I mean, primarily the business process owners at this point, of understanding that you own a process and that you're able to improve upon that. At the end of the day, or rewind the clock, it was, hey, we're going to buy a piece of software off the shelf. That is our process. This is how we're going to do business each and every day. You can't alter from it, and we're going to become the best that we can. We've also had jobs where perhaps the foreman is going through, this is how we're going to build this particular job. There is no other way we're going to do it. And by the way, I've been profitable for the last 20 years. Don't tell me another way to go do it. They'll talk to me about prefabrication. And so at the end of the day, implementing a software is going to be easy. It's getting the people to adopt the change at the end of the day. And I think as simple as it is, of you got to ask yourselves and you got to ask the company, do you want ideas of improvement to come naturally within your organization? And will you enact upon those requests? And by answering yes, it's really what you're doing is democratizing IT. You're democratizing all of this of how are we going to go about and create a culture of change that's going to be flexible. And it's going to be, hey, we want to institute the next greatest idea to make the entire company better at the end of the day. And that is sometimes obviously a difficult proposition for some. And the ability to kind of repeat that model year after year, instead of just doing one Kaizen event and mapping out the process and saying, look, we've done this once, it's all good. But having a system that is flexible with you, that is able to kind of go in and change. It's amazing how many departments I go to and say, okay, you don't like it this way. Well, what would you like it to be? And their response is, what do you mean you can change this? Because they're so used to off the shelf systems that is the process. And they begin running with it. I think the thought just occurred to me is there's a difference between somebody owning a spreadsheet. We all own a spreadsheet, version 10.0 that sits on a shared drive somewhere, versus actually owning the database that manages the process. And now you have to ask, how many spreadsheets do we have that are actually managing the process, and how do we begin converting those to something that matters? When you manage the process and the database overall, you're really going to think about every single week, how are we going to be improving upon this? If we have 50 individuals working for me and they're wasting 2 minutes a day, that time adds up. And so that's going to be your continuous improvement all the time for every single application. So that would be one of the things to really encourage. Find that champion, find that owner of the process, and make sure they understand they own the app. It wasn't Bob Salaj or IT or my lean team. We made this app. They owned it. They built it. It's the end of the day. The business process owner is really the one at the end of the day that I feel owns the application to improve upon that. So as you look at your applications, and we look here, flexibility, profitability, and risk, I mean, across the board, to us, it came around data integrity. It's really, as you go in and put this information into our applications, let's talk about that planning and prefab app. We're putting in a slew of information at the end of the day. And all the KPIs, all the metrics, if they're not worth the salt and worth a dime, at the end of the day, the foreman's going to say, this is great. It's useless to me. I'm going to go back to stick building out in the field, and we're just going to keep doing the project as is. And making sure that the data that gets entered, and you have a way to kind of manage that, right? You can require certain fields at certain times. You can create certain parameters around making sure the right information gets in there at the right time. The people that are looking at that are critical, and making sure that they can trust the information, that when you say this kit is going to arrive on Monday, the 23rd, it's going to be there. And if they begin seeing that it's not occurring, you're going to see failure along that process. So take the time, make your application simple, make sure they're user friendly as well, and continue to move in that direction overall and build out that culture of change. So nothing's perfect out of the gate, and we got to make sure to continue to improve upon that each and every day that we're going to move forward with it. So sorry for going on the soapbox here, Greg, but I think this has been a really important topic here internally that we've been facing at Lighthouse.
No, actually, I'm glad you did, because it's such a big and important topic. We wanted to spend some more time talking about, okay, how do you enact this cultural change across the company? And I'd actually love to give you your soapbox back and talk a little bit more about this topic.
Yeah, and I think as we've talked through, I mean, take a look at the information that we're going through, take a look at the people, and take time to think through, what is the strategy? How are we going to get two people into a room to respectfully disagree about something? How often do we do a Kaizen or a process improvement and we all get into a room and you got that one person says, I think it needs to be this way. And everyone just kind of goes there and nods their head and says, yep, that's what it is. We go off and we build an application and nobody uses it, because guess what? That wasn't the right way to do it at the end of the day. So understanding how people are reacting to one another, feeling free to come up with ideas, and basically enable all of that through technology is important. Helping to educate, train consistently, find your champions, all of that takes time and effort, and really thinking through each and every piece of that along your journey. How are you going to continue to train? Create those videos of training. How are you going to create the standard operating procedures that dictate how that application is going to be working, and who's allowed to make the change? What's your governance model? There's a whole list of things that we can kind of begin mapping out, but really taking the time to think about the people that are involved at the end of the day. And we can spend an enormous amount of time on one application, or we can spend a little bit of time on many applications. And so obviously, if you spend a little time, they might not be as good as the other. And you begin getting that negative feedback across the board. And so we got to figure out, how do we begin to swim this sea that's going to, it could be turbulent at times and it can be calm. It's interesting to see that as we continue to build out and move year over year in terms of the change. So really have a strategic plan and how all your systems begin to integrate with your other point of view systems, because those are capable of doing some miraculous things. And how do you begin getting all that information at just the right point? And I'll say one more thing on this, and I'll get off my soapbox, Greg, is really, we've all seen the spreadsheets, right? We've all seen analysis by paralysis, a spreadsheet that wants to track 500 KPIs, but really at the end of the day, it might only be 3 things that is really going to move the needle in terms of change or have an impact in terms of your process. That could be a date change request in terms of a kit. That could be the number of workers that you have on a job site. It might not be 500 KPIs that maybe somebody wants to track just to have in a spreadsheet that looks super fancy. And those KPIs then dictate a dashboard that we want to begin sharing. So obviously, if you share a dashboard with 500, you're going to lose people. It's going to be way too much information to consume at once, and we got to make that user-friendly experience across the board. So I've been guilty of it myself, and we continue to learn each and every day. So I look forward to best practices that anyone on the line can share with us, but culture is important, Greg.
Yeah, before I let you go, I'd love you to talk a little bit to this slide, and then you can get off your
I forgot about this. This was so important to us as a company overall. Really, it has become our moniker. It's our brand, safe, right, fast. So as we look at every single job site of what we do, we need to do it safe. We need to do it right. We need to do it fast. And that goes for every single improvement project that's internally that we do. It's our culture and our mindset, as it says there on the screen. So we thought this was actually so important. We have also branched off, created our own company, and everything that we've been talking about up to now is really available through Safe Right Fast. We want to come out and help the industry. The construction industry has really been looking at lean. How do we implement lean? But we're not quite sure. And it's been going on for decades of what we have. And we're starting to see really in the last few years a tremendous amount of technology, because all of a sudden now this is the area to get into, and we're going to come up with 3D models. We're going to come up with 4D models and include time. We're going to create all of this virtual construction. But at the end of the day, we got to really figure out, what is that culture? How do we go from point A to point B in the most effective process? And it's a combination of everything. It's not just one solution. So Safe Right Fast, check us out. We can help you and partner and work together to make the industry better.
Great, thank you. Now, Brian, I'd love to get your point of view on enacting change, cultural change across a company.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably repeat a lot of what Bob said, because that was a great great discussion that he had there on kind of the culture of the construction industry. I would say the same thing. One of the things that I saw when I was in construction was, this is how we've been doing it for 20 years or 30 years. This is how I run my site. Don't change the way I do things. It's worked. We've gotten things done. I don't need to update anything. So one of the ways I would say to enact change is, a lot of the individuals that I speak with are, either the owners or a foreman, and they're trying to, find that new way of doing things. So if the change starts from the top layers and kind of trickles down to the, the on-site workers or the actual individuals that are responsible for the task or the project. So that change has to start at the top. If they find value in it, and to Bob's point, if the data is wrong, you're going to lose a bunch of people, because now they can't trust what's in the application. So make sure that those applications are, user friendly. They're simple to digest the information in, but make sure that that change is coming from the top, and the individuals at the top realize the value in the application itself, and then how they can have the rest of their workforce use that information. In back in the day, I don't know why I said that. I'm not that old, but we used to have they would walk around with those huge plans, the 24x36 with their notes on them. They would have their hand notes of, okay, this team is responsible for the framing, this team is responsible for the roof, this team is doing the plumbing. Well, now they don't have to carry those plans around. They can have it all on their phone. What task, what team's responsible for it, who are the individuals on that team, who do I need to reach out for when this, something goes awry or something's not done on time. So with those simplified apps, they can have them right in their hand as well. So, everyone has a cell phone nowadays. They can look down, they can track their tasks from the Quickbase app. Those apps are automatically there. So it's simplifying the process and, making sure that all that information is right there in that one pane of glass. So but to circle back to your question, to enact the change, starting at the top, and then to echo Bob's points, make sure they're user-friendly and simple to use, so everyone has access to that information.
Great, thanks. And now we're sort of at our last question here before the Q&A. Would love to get very much more granular and talk about ensuring application adoption rather than sort of broader cultural change. Steve, I know you had a very interesting slide here around how you ensure app adoption.
Yeah, it's all about making people's jobs easier, more enjoyable. If people log into an application and there's problems with it, if it's not too intuitive, if they have problems using it, if it's not quite working right, they're going to hate it. But on the other hand, if it at the end of the day makes their job easier and it makes them more efficient, they're going to love it. And that's sort of been our experience. And that's what we aim for with the applications that we build for clients is, anytime you can put a button, people love to click buttons, especially when they do a lot of complex stuff in the background that they don't see. They don't need to see that stuff. Keep it simple, keep it nice on the interface, make it really usable. And again, make their jobs easier, make it more efficient overall. And I think they'll adopt it. A lot of people say things like, we've been doing it so long without this or without that. But, if we build them a great app and get them to try it, most of the time they'll see the value in it and everybody can benefit. And one unique thing about Quickbase too, and this is one thing that Bob and Brian touched on a little bit as well, is I've been on the phone with clients who say, oh, you know what, can we change this or can we change that? And it's so quick and easy to do in Quickbase that you just tell them, okay, just refresh your page and your new report is there, or the changes that you wanted are there. And really it blows them away because a lot of people's conceptions of this kind of thing, databases and IT and stuff, is that it takes a room full of people and it takes weeks to do simple changes, but that's simply not the case anymore. And the more that we can show that to people, I think the more success at adopting applications will be.
Great, thank you, Steve. And Bob, would love to get your opinion on rolling out and ensuring app adoption.
Yeah, promise not to take up too much time on this one, but no, I think this was great. I think everything that Steve, Brian, you guys have been saying is spot on. Maybe actually to kind of go back to make this full circle, I'm actually going to, Steve, you mentioned some applications that you made as, what was it, tracking food and chickens and everything else on your farm on that. I actually coach young kids soccer, and my number one rule with them is have fun. And let's not forget about that. Let's have fun. And we have applications inside that we've built, such as a pirate ticketing app. We just created an app for tracking ping pong and tournaments. And it's one thing to kind of say, okay, that's silly and we don't want to do it. But in actuality, what it actually does is help out with that culture change. And by understanding of what the technology can do, because that is a really simple application, it's simple. Oh, this button's here, it does that. You're actually gaining the buy-in and consensus, and they may not even know it at the end of the day because it is a fun application. And that's what we need to really begin promoting more so that they can be more adoptive for a more complex application that we might have down the line. So everything that you see here on the screen is really echoing what Steve put. I would just kind of throw out there is have fun, enjoy it, and get that adoption.
Great, thank you. Well, and I hope that everyone here who's been watching us is having as much fun as I think we are on the panel, sort of sharing ideas and thoughts and the way we use Quickbase, especially in construction. So what we're going to do now, though, is switch over to the Q&A. Before we get to the actual questions, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to the panelists here for sharing all of your thoughts, going through this with the entire audience. A big thank you to the audience for sharing your time with us, getting all of your questions. Also would love to get your feedback and a rating on this session as well when it's over. Lastly, if you have any questions later that come to mind, my name is Greg Hackenberg. You can head over to the Quickbase Community Slack Empower Sessions channel. Feel free to ping me with those questions and would love to answer or help you get in touch with the right person to answer those questions. So with that said, we will look into those Q&A questions.